Hey everybody, John Skiba here, and in this video I'm going to share with you some tips for those of you who are representing yourselves in a debt collection lawsuit. I know there's a lot of anxiety that comes with representing yourself in court, and so in this video I'm going to provide you with 3 tips that will help you be a superman or superwoman in the courtroom. But if this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, go ahead and click subscribe. That way you'll get notified each and every week when I put out a new video to help you deal with your serious debt problem. All right, let's talk about the process of representing yourselves and some of the anxieties that are involved there. If you're representing yourself, you're likely in, most people don't get sued a whole lot. They're not in court a whole lot. And often when people get sued by a credit card company, debt collector, junk debt buyer, whoever it is, it's really their first interaction with the court system. And if you're dealing with that, I know you're probably dealing with a lot of sleepless nights. You're worried about how you're going to be able to present your arguments. You're worried about the procedure and the process. And then to make things even more difficult, in states like Arizona, where I practice, by law, the courts are required to hold you to the same standards that they do attorneys that are practicing in their courtrooms. Now, that doesn't seem really fair because, like an attorney like myself, I do this every single day. I've been doing it for almost 20 years. I've been dealing with these debt buyer cases, going to court, dealing with trials. And so to hold someone who doesn't do this to the same standard of me doesn't seem really fair, but that's how the system is. And so you're going to be held most likely to the same standards that attorneys who do this day in and day out, and that can produce a lot of anxiety. So in this video, I want to give you 3 tips on how you can deal with some of that anxiety and look like a pro in the courtroom. Now, the overarching theme of this whole video is preparation. You need to be prepared. And the first tip that I'm going to give you that's going to help you to be the most prepared and probably alleviate the most anxiety is to simply go to the courthouse where your trial or hearing or whatever it is going to be held and just watch how the judge deals with other cases. You can go down to the courthouse and get a copy of the docket, see what types of cases are on the docket, and you can actually go and sit down in the back of the courtroom and just watch them. These are public hearings. You're able to see how the other attorneys act. You can see how the arguments they raise. Maybe you can watch someone else who's representing themselves, and you can see the things that they do well, the things they don't do well, the things that are not accepted well by the court, or some of the counter arguments that the debt collector's attorney is going to use. You can even, if you get the docket ahead of time, you can go and literally watch maybe the same creditor, the same attorney. Maybe you're getting sued by Midland Funding or Portfolio Recovery. You can go find other cases that they have going on and go and sit down and watch those, take some notes. You're welcome to be there. Like I said, all these court cases are public. I've had this happen in my trials where people will literally come and sit in the back of the courtroom and they'll come up and talk to me afterwards and say, hey, I watched you on YouTube and I thought I'd come down and get some pointers before I head into my trial. So going down to the courthouse and watching is going to be one of the best things that you can do. Not only that, it helps you kind of alleviate some of the concerns of like where the courthouse is, getting through security, particularly right now when we're recording this in summer of 2020. We're dealing with COVID-19. Sometimes getting into the courthouse is the most difficult part of the whole process. So, checking in with the clerk, do I need to, where do I sit? Which table do I sit at? Quick funny story. The first time I went to court as an attorney, I thought I was fully prepared. I walked into the courtroom and there's 2 tables there, one on the right and one on the left. And I looked at that and I thought, I don't know where to sit. I'd prepared my legal briefs. I knew exactly which way I wanted to go with my case, but I didn't know which chair to sit in. And I was a young attorney and I didn't want to look stupid. And so I learned that later on. Here's how it is. If there's a jury box, the defendant sits furthest away from the jury. The plaintiff and their attorney will sit closest to the jury box. If you don't have a jury box, hopefully the court puts a label there. I've seen some courts do that. They'll say plaintiff, defendant. But those kind of small things, they can actually produce a lot of anxiety, and they can also detract from your presentation of the argument when you actually get to whether it's a hearing or whether it's actually trial. So going down there, kind of going through a dry run on just some of the basics, and then seeing how the judge handles the cases, it'll alleviate a lot of anxiety because you know exactly what to expect once you get down there. The second tip that I'm going to give you is to practice. If you're going to presenting some type of oral argument or presentation, or you want to discuss with the judge why you think that their case should not be, move forward, if it shouldn't go to trial, if judgment should be entered in your favor, the best thing you can do is practice. Write down an outline and practice it. I can tell you, again, as someone who's been doing this almost 20 years, I almost never go into a substantive hearing, whether it's a trial or whether I'm giving closing arguments or opening arguments, without literally closing the door in my office, standing up, and delivering it as if I was there. Go ahead and practice. The more you do that, the more comfortable you'll be, and then when you get in there, it'll just be autopilot. You'll be able to go through it, and it won't be that difficult. I can tell you, you can see over my shoulder here, my BYU football helmets. When I was in college, I played football for BYU. And I can tell you that is kind of the mentality that they had in practice, and I know this is true in most sports. But you practice the same thing over and over and over and over. So when you got into the game type situation, where you're there in front of 65,000 people and the national TV cameras are on you, that you don't choke. That because you know what? It's just muscle memory. I've done this a million times in practice. I know exactly where to go. I know what to do. Same thing with your court case. If you practice it, by the time you get into court, it'll just flow pretty easily. Third thing and last thing I would tell you is to go in with the appropriate mindset. And really what I mean by that is don't go in and be intimidated by the process. Most of these cases are handled in small claims types courts. In Arizona, they're handled in justice courts. It's anything under 10 grand is handled there. And I can tell you, it's a lot of times we build these things up in our mind when in reality, then you show up to the courthouse and you realize it's you, the opposing attorney, and a judge. There's just 3 people in this room discussing this case. Not only that, often debt collectors, they'll hire really young attorneys. So while they're probably going to be way more experienced than you, they may not be someone who's been doing it for 20 or 30 years. They may be in their first or second year of law practice as well. So if you go in and are fully prepared, if you go and watch ahead of time, make sure you understand how the judge does just the small things, the procedures. It'll help you to anticipate some of the arguments that you're going to have to deal with. And then if you prepare, if you practice those, stand up, literally close the door to the bedroom and actually present it out loud. You could even do it in a mirror so you know exactly what it is that you're looking like as you're presenting your arguments. And then the third thing is don't go in there intimidated. Have confidence. These are good arguments that I'm providing you here in these videos. Go in there and present your case to the judge and don't take no crap from no one. So appreciate you watching today. If you want to learn some other tactics and approaches on how to deal with debt collection lawsuits, my YouTube channel here is full of them. I appreciate you watching those others and subscribing to the channel. But thanks for watching today.